When a football legend like Pat Jennings says someone's the best ever, you listen. This is a man who spent over 2 decades standing between the posts, facing down the greatest talents the game has ever produced. But who else makes it into the goalkeeper's all-time list of icons? The answer tells us everything about what true greatness looks like on a football pitch. Pat Jennings wasn't just any goalkeeper. Over a career spanning 22 years, from 1964 to 1986, he racked up more than 1,000 top-level appearances. That's over 1,000 matches where he commanded his penalty box with the kind of calm authority that made him one of the most respected figures in football history. He earned 119 caps for Northern Ireland, a record that stood as testament to his enduring excellence. This wasn't a player who burned bright and faded fast. This was a man who maintained elite-level performance across 2 decades of football's most transformative era. His club career reads like a love letter to North London football. 13 years at Tottenham Hotspur, where he made 591 appearances and won the FA Cup in 1967, 2 League Cups in 1971 and 1973, and the UEFA Cup in 1972. Then, defying everyone who said he was past his prime, he crossed the fierce North London divide to spend 8 successful years at Arsenal, making 327 appearances and winning the 1979 FA Cup. The fact that both Spurs and Arsenal fans revere him equally tells you everything about the man's quality and professionalism. That kind of respect doesn't come easily in football. In a city where tribal loyalty runs deep, where crossing that divide often means burning bridges forever, Jennings transcended the rivalry through sheer excellence. The individual honours confirm what everyone who watched him already knew. FWA Footballer of the Year in 1973, PFA Players Player of the Year in 1976, inclusion in the World in Maith in 1973. His reputation was built on composure and an almost supernatural positional sense. He rarely needed spectacular, acrobatic saves because he was always in exactly the right place. He mastered the art of the one-on-one situation, narrowing angles to frustrate oncoming strikers before they even took their shot. His technique was textbook, his positioning impeccable, his reading of the game masterful. So when Pat Jennings names his 5 favourite players, this isn't casual barroom chat. This is a goalkeeper who faced the best telling you which opponents gave him nightmares. His list represents a goalkeeper's ultimate terror, each player bringing a different kind of threat. Speed, power, intellect, creativity. Together, they paint a picture of football's golden age, the 1960s and 1970s, when the sport evolved from individual brilliance into tactical sophistication. George Best sits at the very top of Jennings's list, and the words Jennings uses are striking. Not just great, not just exceptional. The best player he had ever seen. Coming from a man who spent his career studying the finest attackers in the world, that's a statement that carries immense weight. What made Best so special? Jennings put it perfectly when he said, "Best did everything a yard quicker than everyone else." Think about what that means from a goalkeeper's perspective. Your job is reaction time measured in fractions of a second. If an attacker operates even a split second faster than you can process, you're beaten before you've even moved. That momentary loss becomes fatal. Best didn't just beat you with skill, he beat you with time itself, operating in a different temporal dimension than everyone else on the pitch. Best's style was breathtaking. He combined electrifying pace with supreme skill, phenomenal balance, deceptive feints, and genuine two-footedness. That last point matters more than people realise. Most players have a strong foot and a weak foot. You can anticipate which way they'll go, which side they'll shoot to. Best had no weakness. He could beat you on either side, shoot with either foot, and do it all while seemingly off balance. Journalist Patrick Barclay observed that Best mastered not just the ball, but his own body, allowing him to beat opponents in any way he chose. That's the ultimate individualist, someone who could turn a game with one dazzling run. For Jennings, the perspective on Best was uniquely intimate. Both men were the preeminent footballers to emerge from Northern Ireland in that generation. They shared international duty, carrying the weight of representing a nation that never quite had the depth to compete at World Cups. But their most direct encounters happened week after week in the English First Division, with Best starring for Manchester United and Jennings defending the goal for Tottenham and later Arsenal. This wasn't occasional exposure. This was regular, sustained, close-quarters combat at the highest level of English football. Jennings saw Best's genius not in isolated moments of brilliance, but in the grinding reality of season after season excellence. What's fascinating about Jennings placing Best at number 1 is what it reveals about his criteria for greatness. Best never achieved the international silverware that defined Pelé, Beckenbauer, or Eusebio. His final career numbers show 189 goals in 522 appearances. Solid, but not statistically overwhelming. Yet Jennings ranked him above everyone else. Why? Because individual, disruptive genius outweighed systemic success in the eyes of a man who faced that genius directly. Best possessed the uncoachable quality of technical superiority and velocity, the pure ability to revolutionize a match with a single touch. That mattered more than trophies. It was the nightmare scenario for any goalkeeper, facing a player who could invent solutions that hadn't existed seconds before. If George Best was chaos personified, Pelé was perfection in motion. Jennings includes him among the legends he shared the field with, a recognition rooted in historical status rather than a specific technical observation. And that makes perfect sense, because Pelé established the parameters for what global footballing greatness meant in the mid-20th century. Born Edson Arantes do Nascimento, Pelé achieved something no other male player has matched before or since. 3 FIFA World Cup titles in 1958, 1962 and 1973. That unprecedented international success made him the definitive figure of his era, the standard against which every other player was measured. He was the embodiment of the complete forward: strength, speed, vision, exceptional technical control, the ability to dominate in the air. His scoring record speaks to remarkable consistency: 606 goals across 647 top-level club appearances for Santos and the New York Cosmos. That's nearly a goal a game maintained across decades. For Jennings, whose club career was rooted in English football and didn't directly overlap with Pelé's peak years in Brazil, the admiration came from a different place. His long international career with Northern Ireland meant he encountered Pelé in international fixtures, exhibition matches, and tournaments. The selection of Pelé serves as a necessary acknowledgement of historical truth. Any list of the greatest players of the 1960s and 1970s that omitted him would lack credibility. Jennings's inclusion confirms his appreciation for the scope of Pelé's impact, a magnitude of success that transcended geography and club rivalries. Pelé forced every goalkeeper and defence worldwide to elevate their expectations. He was the global benchmark, the complete package that set the standard. While Best might have been more dangerous in individual moments, Pelé represented sustained, decade-defining dominance. He was the yardstick against which Best's raw talent was often measured. He made the impossible look routine, the extraordinary appear ordinary through sheer consistency. But while Best and Pelé stunned the world with flair, 2 others changed the game itself. Johan Cruyff and Franz Beckenbauer represent something different in Jennings's pantheon. They weren't just spectacular players. They were architects who altered the flow and structure of football, presenting defensive challenges that went beyond individual skill. Cruyff was the principal proponent and on-field executioner of total football, the revolutionary philosophy developed by Rinus Michels. Total football relied on attacking players swapping positions fluidly, blurring the lines between defensive, midfield, and attacking roles. This wasn't just creative. It was fundamentally destabilising to traditional, rigid defensive setups. For a goalkeeper like Jennings, whose game was built on positional mastery and anticipating movement, facing Cruyff meant conventional defensive planning became obsolete. You couldn't mark a position because positions didn't exist in the traditional sense. The fluid interchange movement forced Jennings to defend concepts and space rather than specific players. Cruyff's personal dominance during the early 1970s was confirmed by his 3 Ballon d'Or awards in 4 years in 1971, 1973 and 1974. That's unprecedented recognition for sustained individual excellence. He represented the pinnacle of tactical opposition, the mind that could dismantle your defensive geometry before the ball even moved. Franz Beckenbauer stands out on Jennings's list for a crucial reason. He's the only non-forward or non-attacking midfielder included. That alone tells you the immense respect Jennings held for his role. Beckenbauer was the innovator who redefined the libero, the sweeper position, transforming it from a static last line of defence into a dynamic, creative attacking role. His ability to launch attacks from deep while maintaining defensive cover made him one of the most effective figures in football history. Beckenbauer led the dominant West German teams of the era, achieving victory in the 1974 FIFA World Cup and the 1972 UEFA European Championship. Individual distinction followed, 2 Ballon d'Or wins in 1972 and 1976. What made him special wasn't just defensive solidity. It was the capacity to turn defence into offence instantaneously, to control the game's rhythm from the back. He was nicknamed the Kaiser for good reason, a commanding presence who ruled the pitch with authority and vision. Together, Cruyff and Beckenbauer defined the great philosophical rivalry of the 1970s, the Netherlands' aesthetic flair versus West Germany's efficient control. Jennings, having encountered both in high-stakes European competitions, recognised them as the ultimate embodiments of strategic command. Their inclusion demonstrates that his criteria for greatness spanned all operational levels of the pitch. He valued players who possessed the intellectual capacity to dictate the game's rhythm and structure, effectively neutralising a goalkeeper's positional expertise through systemic movement. And then there was power. Raw, unstoppable power. Eusebio da Silva Ferreira, known internationally as the Black Panther, represented the ultimate threat of pure, explosive athletic force aimed directly at the goal. Jennings observed him as exceptional, someone he had the opportunity to share the field with during his career. Eusebio was celebrated for a lethal combination of attributes: exceptional acceleration, skills, performance, athleticism, and vicious right-footed shots. That last phrase is key. While Best created chaos through intricate dribbling, Eusebio challenged the keeper through sheer, unmitigated velocity and power. For a goalkeeper, a shot delivered with maximum power drastically limits reaction time. Often, it makes the save impossible regardless of optimal positioning. His club career at Benfica was extraordinary. He remains the club's all-time top scorer with 727 goals in 715 official matches. During his peak, he helped Benfica secure 11 league titles and the 1962 European Cup. Individually, he won the Ballon d'Or in 1965. But Eusebio cemented his international superstar status at the 1966 FIFA World Cup, where he led Portugal to a third-place finish and earned the Golden Boot as the tournament's top goal scorer with 9 goals. This tournament coincided directly with Jennings's rise to prominence at Tottenham, establishing Eusebio as the most dangerous clinical centre forward in Europe during that period. While Jennings may have missed the famous 1962 European Cup semi-final between Spurs and Benfica, Eusebio's continued dominance throughout the 1960s ensured Jennings faced or prepared for the striker's threat in subsequent encounters. Eusebio's presence completes the profile of Jennings's nightmares. If Cruyff and Beckenbauer were intellectual problems, and Best was an unpredictable artist, Eusebio represented the mastery of pure, powerful finishing, a direct athletic assault on the goal that demanded not anticipation, but instantaneous, flawless reflexes. Together, these 5 players tell a complete story. George Best represents unpredictable genius, the player who did everything a yard quicker. Pelé defines perfect completeness, the global standard of sustained excellence. Johan Cruyff embodies tactical revolution, the mind that forced defences to think differently. Franz Beckenbauer stands for strategic control, the defender who became an attacker. Eusebio delivers explosive execution, raw power channeled with clinical precision. Pat Jennings's list captures football's evolution during its golden age. From artistry to athleticism to intellect, his long, decorated career gave him the unique perspective to appreciate all forms of greatness. He didn't just watch these players from a distance, he faced them. He prepared for them. He understood what made each one special because he experienced it directly, standing on the goal line watching genius unfold. It's a reminder that legends recognise legends, and Pat Jennings saw them all. His choices aren't subjective opinion, they're professional assessment from someone who spent over 2 decades at the highest level, someone who earned the respect of both Tottenham and Arsenal fans, someone who played until he was 40 and maintained elite performance throughout. He famously even scored a goal himself in the 1967 Charity Shield, a moment that captured his all-around quality and understanding of the game. If you were in Jennings's boots, who would make your top 5? Drop your picks in the comments, and if you love deep dives like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. When someone who stood between the posts for over 2 decades names his all-time 5, it's not opinion. It's gospel. Thanks for watching, and here's to the icons who made even the great Pat Jennings stop and stare.
I'd be more annoyed with my defenders and my goalkeeper than Thierry Henry.
Dennis is a great player. You're on about being consistent. Dennis was an 8 out of 10 most weeks, outstanding. And always fit,
Eric was obviously a brilliant player, scored big goals for Man United, big character, good personality.
Wayne was on us obviously about lack of composure and quality. Well, I think he was as guilty as anybody, you know, and he needs to step up to the plate.
He had no talent. That's what Roy Keane said about one of his favourite players. Not just any player, a man who played over 500 games for Manchester United, a man who won 7 Premier League titles. Dennis Irwin, no talent, but somehow world class. This is Roy Keane's list of favourite footballers, and it makes no sense until you realise what it really is. It's not about skill, it's not about trophies, it's about something darker, something harder. This list is a weapon, a statement, a rejection of everything modern football has become. Keane picked 5 players, just 5, from a team that dominated English football for over a decade, from squads that included Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, Rio Ferdinand, Peter Schmeichel, all left out, all rejected. So who made the cut? And more importantly, why? Let's find out what Roy Keane really thinks about greatness and why his version of it might be the harshest lesson football has ever been taught. Roy Keane doesn't measure players the way you do. He doesn't care about highlight reels. He doesn't care about social media. He doesn't care if you scored 40 goals in a season if you disappeared for the other matches. Keane has one rule: do it for 10 years. Not 5, not 7, 10 minimum. He once said he only classes players as world class if they were doing it for 9, 10, 11 years. Consistency, reliability, no variance. That's the test. Think about that for a second. A player could be the best in the world for 3 seasons. Peak Ballon d'Or form. Doesn't matter. Not enough time served. Not enough suffering. He hates celebration. He hates players who have one good month and start patting themselves on the back. In his mind, modern football is full of frauds. Players who shine briefly, then coast on reputation. Players who care more about their brand than their performance. This explains everything. This explains why his list is so short, so brutal, so unforgiving. Keane isn't picking his favourite players. He's picking the only players who met his impossible standard. The rest, they failed the test, even if they were brilliant. Let's start with the strangest choice. Dennis Irwin, the man Keane said had no talent. How does that even work? How can you be world class without talent? Here's what Keane actually meant. Irwin wasn't flashy. He didn't do step-overs. He didn't score wonder goals every week. He didn't make the back pages, but he did something more valuable. He showed up every single week for over a decade. Keane described Irwin as an 8 out of 10. Every single game, never injured, never late, never caused drama, played left back, played right back, took penalties, took free kicks, did his job, went home. Keane loves this. He loves the idea of the zero-maintenance player, the player who doesn't need ego stroking, doesn't need the manager to motivate him, doesn't need headlines to feel important. Irwin was a machine, reliable, boring, perfect. But here's the negative truth. Irwin is only on this list because Keane is from Cork. And so is Irwin. Keane admitted it himself. He said Dennis would be world-class to me, and he's a Corkman. That's bias, pure and simple, and Keane uses Irwin as a weapon. Every time a modern fullback messes up, Keane brings up Dennis. Trent Alexander-Arnold can't defend, Irwin could. Luke Shaw switches off, Irwin never did. The truth is, Irwin was brilliant, but he wasn't the best fullback of his era. That was probably Roberto Carlos, or Paolo Maldini, or Cafu. But those players don't fit Keane's agenda. They were too exciting, too talented. So Keane picks the quiet guy, the one who proves his point about hard work beating flair. Paul Scholes is on every list. Xavi praised him, Zidane praised him, even opposing fans admit he was special. So you'd think Keane's inclusion of Scholes would be straightforward. It's not. Keane called Scholes a top player, amazingly gifted. But then he added something strange. He said he doesn't fall for the boy next door image. He said Scholes had more of an edge, more nastiness. He wanted people to know Scholes wasn't some humble saint. Why does this matter? Because Keane hates the media narrative. He hates the way certain players get protected by their image. Scholes was quiet, didn't do interviews, didn't chase fame, so the media painted him as this shy genius, this innocent footballer who just loved the game. Keane won't accept that. He needs you to know Scholes could be nasty, that he mistimed tackles, that he had an edge. Because in Keane's world, nice guys don't win, warriors do. And if you're going to praise Scholes, you have to praise the darkness in him, not just the passing. But here's the problem. Keane is rewriting history. Scholes was exactly what the media said. He was humble. He did hate the spotlight. He wasn't pretending. Keane's criticism here isn't about Scholes. It's about Keane's discomfort with purity. He can't accept that someone could be great without being angry, without being mean. So he taints the praise. He adds the caveat, and suddenly, even a compliment feels like an attack. That's the Keane way. Even his favourites have to be dragged through the mud a little, just to keep them honest. Eric Cantona is the one player Keane won't criticise, the one sacred name on the list. Keane calls him brilliant, an inspiration, a brilliant player to play with. No caveats, no conditions, just pure admiration. Why? Because Cantona changed Manchester United. Before Cantona, United were talented but weak. They bottled big moments. After Cantona, they were champions. He brought arrogance, swagger, a winning mentality, and Keane respects that more than anything. Cantona also had the edge Keane loves. The collar turned up, the chest puffed out, the kung fu kick into the crowd. Cantona didn't apologise, didn't explain himself, he just was. And that's Keane's ideal, a player who imposes himself on the game through presence alone. But even here, there's a shadow. Keane defends Cantona against critics who say he failed in Europe. People point out Cantona never scored in a Champions League semi-final or final, never won the big European trophy. Keane dismisses this. He says it doesn't matter. Cantona's impact was cultural, not statistical. This is interesting, because Keane uses statistics to beat down other players. He'll point out Rooney's bad games, Rio's mistakes, Ronaldo's lack of pressing. But for Cantona, stats don't matter. It's a double standard. And it shows that even Keane's harsh criteria bend when he truly loves someone. There's something else about Cantona that explains Keane's devotion. Cantona arrived at United in 1992, a moment of chaos, a rescue mission from Leeds, and he transformed everything overnight. The club had gone 26 years without winning the league. Then Cantona showed up. Suddenly they were champions. Keane saw this firsthand. He watched a single personality shift the entire culture of a football club. That's power. That's influence. And Keane has chased that feeling his entire career. He wanted to be that transformative force, the player who changes everything just by walking into the room. Cantona did it with ease, with style, with that iconic collar and that arrogant stare. Keane tried to do it with aggression and intensity, but deep down, he knows Cantona had something he never quite captured: magic. Cantona gets a pass because he came first, because he taught Keane how to be a leader, and because, deep down, Keane wishes he could have been Cantona, the untouchable king. Mark Hughes is the strangest inclusion. Most fans under 30 barely remember him. He left United in 1986, came back in 1988, then left again in 1995. His peak was before the Premier League era, before the global explosion of the sport. But Keane picked him. Why? Because Hughes represented everything Keane values: physicality, grit, suffering. Hughes would hold the ball up with his back to goal. Defenders would kick him, elbow him, try to bully him, and Hughes would just take it, then score a screamer. Keane loves this. The idea of the player as warrior, the player who fights not just the opponent, but the pain itself. Hughes wasn't elegant. He was brutal, effective, relentless. That's the Keane template. But here's the negative angle. Hughes was gone by 1995. Keane's prime years were 1997 to 2003. So this choice is nostalgia. It's Keane looking backwards, clinging to the old days, the days before football became soft, before players cared about their hair and their Instagram followers. By choosing Hughes, Keane is rejecting the modern striker, the Thierry Henrys, the Sergio Agueros, the players who score more, create more, but do it with finesse rather than force. Keane doesn't want finesse. He wants a battering ram, and that's a limited view of greatness. Ryan Giggs is the final name, and on the surface, it makes sense. Giggs played 963 games for United, won 13 league titles, lasted over 2 decades at the top. If longevity is the test, Giggs passes with honours, but Keane's praise is cold. He says Giggs deserves to be called world-class because he did it for 10 or 11 years. It's a technical acknowledgement, not a passionate endorsement. Compare that to the way he talks about Cantona. There's no fire, no emotion, just a box ticked. Why? Because Giggs represents something Keane struggles with. Early in his career, Giggs was marketed heavily. The new George Best, magazine covers, his own TV show, all the things Keane hates. Giggs was a celebrity before he was a champion. Keane tolerated this because Giggs evolved. He stopped being the flashy winger. He became a central midfielder, quiet, professional, disciplined. He proved himself through survival, through adaptation, and Keane respects that. But there's a coldness here. Giggs is on the list because he has to be, not because Keane loves him. The criteria demand it, and Keane follows his own rules, even when it's uncomfortable. Now for the really interesting part. Who didn't make the list and why? Cristiano Ronaldo is arguably the greatest player of all time. 5 Ballon d'Ors, hundreds of goals, Champions League titles. Yet Keane leaves him out. The excuse? He played with Ronaldo early in his career, before Ronaldo reached his peak. This is technically true. Keane left United in 2005. Ronaldo's best season was 2008. But it's also a convenient lie. Ronaldo was already a superstar by 2004, already tearing teams apart. Keane saw enough. The real reason Ronaldo isn't on the list? Ego, not Ronaldo's, Keane's. Ronaldo represents the modern footballer, the brand, the celebration, the individual above the team, everything Keane despises. By excluding Ronaldo, Keane is saying talent isn't enough. You need to suffer in silence. And Ronaldo never did that. Rio Ferdinand is the most personal exclusion. Keane destroyed Rio in his infamous MUTV rant. He said Rio was paid £120,000 a week, but only played well for 20 minutes against Tottenham. He called Rio flaky, lazy, unfocused. This wasn't about football, this was about class. Rio was relaxed, confident, enjoyed life off the pitch. Keane saw this as disrespect, as complacency. He wanted defenders who looked like they'd been in a war, not ones who left the pitch with a clean kit. Rio was brilliant, one of the best defenders in Premier League history, but he committed the crime of making it look easy, and Keane never forgives that. Wayne Rooney is United's all-time top scorer, yet Keane has criticised him brutally. He questioned Rooney's professionalism, his off-field behaviour, his attitude in later years. Keane once said, "If football makes you miserable, cancel your contract. Don't steal $20 million a year." Rooney's crime? He peaked early, then declined. He didn't maintain the hunger. Keane sees this as betrayal. You're given the gift of playing for Manchester United and you waste it. Unforgivable. Peter Schmeichel might be the greatest goalkeeper in Premier League history, yet Keane and Schmeichel hated each other. They fought in a hotel corridor in Singapore. Keane admitted to headbutting Schmeichel, left him with a black eye. Why? Schmeichel was loud, theatrical. He'd scream at defenders, make big saves, then pose for the cameras. Keane saw this as attention-seeking, as performing. He wanted a goalkeeper who saved the ball and got on with it, not one who turned every stop into a drama. So Schmeichel is out. Greatness doesn't matter if Keane doesn't like you. And Keane really didn't like Schmeichel. So what does this list really tell us? It tells us that Roy Keane's version of greatness has nothing to do with what you achieve. It's about how you achieve it. Suffer in silence. Show up every week. Don't celebrate. Don't brand yourself. Don't enjoy it too much. And perhaps that's the saddest part of all. Keane's list isn't just about football standards. It's about pain, about martyrdom, about the belief that if you enjoyed the journey, you didn't work hard enough. His 5 chosen players aren't just great footballers. They're symbols of everything Keane thinks has been lost. The anonymity, the work ethic, the refusal to smile for the cameras. In Keane's world, happiness is suspicious. Joy is weakness. And if you celebrated a goal for more than 3 seconds, you were part of the problem. That's not a football philosophy. That's a prison. And Keane built it himself. His 5 favourites are mirrors. Dennis Irwin is the player Keane thinks he was. Reliable, uncelebrated. Paul Scholes is the player Keane wishes everyone could be. Talented but humble. Eric Cantona is the player Keane wanted to become. A leader, a legend. Mark Hughes is the past Keane clings to. The old school warrior. Ryan Giggs is the survivor. The one who proved longevity matters. Everyone else failed the test. Not because they weren't good enough, but because they didn't play the game the way Keane demanded. They enjoyed fame, or they didn't suffer enough, or they smiled too much, or they were just too talented without working hard enough in Keane's eyes. This list isn't about football, it's about values, about a dying code, about a man who believes the sport has lost its soul. And maybe he's right, or maybe he's just bitter that the world moved on without him. Either way, this is Roy Keane. Hard, unforgiving, impossible to please. And that's exactly why we can't stop listening to him. Because in a world of ego and celebration, Keane still looks for warriors, even if he can barely find any.
The important thing to me is that I came to Leeds at 15 and I've had an absolutely wonderful time. Wouldn't swap it.
And a fight going off the ball between Hunter and Lee. Looks to me as if it's broken out again. It's broken out again, and now this time...
He's a master. That's what they called the players Norman Hunter admired most. Strange, isn't it? When you think of Norman Hunter, you don't think of mastery in the artistic sense. You think of the nickname, bites your legs. You think of tackles flying in, of opponents wincing, of a defender who made his reputation through sheer physical intimidation. But here's the twist that makes Hunter's story so fascinating. The man known as one of football's hardest enforcers didn't reserve his deepest respect for fellow hardmen. He saved it for artists, for technicians, for the players who could do something he never could, something he was specifically instructed not to even try. Norman Hunter's manager at Leeds United, Don Revie, gave him explicit instructions that defined his entire career. Norman, you win the ball and you give it to those who can play. That single sentence reveals everything about Hunter's role and, more importantly, about his values. He wasn't there to be brilliant. He was there to serve brilliance. And the players he respected most were the ones who justified his sacrifice, the ones who could take the ball he won and turn it into something magical. So who earned Norman Hunter's deepest respect? Not who you'd expect, not the warriors, not the enforcers, but 5 players whose technical skill, intelligence and character represented everything Hunter's role was designed to support. Let me take you through each of them, and you'll understand why this hard man's heroes tell us more about football's soul than any list of tough guys ever could. The player Hunter called the strongest he ever shared a shirt with. When asked directly who that was, Hunter didn't hesitate. Johnny Giles. The answer came immediately, and the praise that followed was extraordinary. A fantastic player, one of the most complete players I have ever seen on a football pitch. Technique of the highest level and a fantastic character. A true leader and an exemplary professional. Think about those words for a moment. Hunter didn't say Giles was good. He didn't say he was talented. He said he was one of the most complete players Hunter had ever seen. This is a man who played for Leeds United during their greatest era, who faced the best players in England and Europe week after week, and he's saying Giles was at the absolute pinnacle. The technical edge Giles possessed, his intelligence on the ball, his ability to control a game from midfield, these were the qualities that defined greatness in Hunter's eyes. But there's more context here. Hunter's instructions from Reevy were to win it and give it to Johnny Giles or Billy Bremner. Notice that pairing. Those two men were the creative brain of Leeds United. Hunter's entire game was built around serving them. When he won the ball, his job was done. What happened next was up to Giles and Bremner, and in Hunter's estimation, while both were brilliant, Giles held a slight technical edge. He was the most complete, the one Hunter would choose if forced to pick just one teammate as the strongest. Now, speaking of Billy Bremner, he's the second name on our list. While Giles got the most complete designation, Bremner was something else entirely. He was the heartbeat, the captain, the never-say-die spirit that drove Leeds United forward even when logic said they were beaten. Hunter respected Bremner for different reasons than he respected Giles, but the respect was just as deep. Bremner was the on-field general, the man who embodied everything Don Reevy wanted his team to be. He was small in stature, but enormous in presence. He was the player who would take the ball from Hunter and immediately start dictating the game's rhythm. More than that, he was the leader who made everyone around him believe. In an era defined by superstition and ritual, Bremner was the one who controlled those rituals. He was the one who tossed the ball to the crowd before kickoff, the one who set the tone, the one who simply would not accept defeat. Hunter's role was tactically subservient to Bremner's. That's not a criticism. That's the structure of a great team. Hunter won the ball. Bremner and Giles decided what to do with it, and Hunter knew that Bremner's leadership, his character, his relentless attitude, these were the qualities that elevated Leeds from a good team to a great one. Technical skill matters, yes, but so does heart. Bremner had both in abundance. The third teammate Hunter respected profoundly was Jack Charlton. This relationship is fascinating because it wasn't built on equality. It was built on mentorship. Hunter openly called Charlton his principal early influence. When Hunter was young, breaking into the Leeds team, Charlton was already established. And Charlton didn't treat Hunter gently. As Hunter recalled, Big Jack used to boss us around. It was do this, do that, stand there, even trap the ball, Norman. He was like a traffic warden. Imagine being told by your defensive partner to trap the ball. That's basic stuff, but Hunter wasn't insulted. He learned. He watched Charlton, studied his positioning, absorbed his knowledge of how to read danger before it arrived. Their partnership lasted at least 10 years. 10 years of Hunter playing off Charlton, cleaning up after him, anticipating his movements. A teammate later described it as a terrific partnership, noting that Hunter had a great knowledge of where to be as a defender. He could see danger before it came near him. That awareness was forged in those early years under Charlton's demanding tutelage. There's a telling anecdote about their relationship's evolution. Hunter remembered a match against West Ham where he finally had a right go back at Charlton, telling him off in front of the cop. It was Hunter's coming-of-age moment, the student asserting himself against the master. But here's what matters. Hunter concluded the story by saying Charlton wasn't one to hold grudges. That speaks to Charlton's character, to the respect Hunter maintained for him, despite the occasionally harsh treatment. Charlton shaped Hunter's career, and Hunter never forgot it. Now let me ask you something. If you were a world-class defender, who would you want to face? Which opponent would truly test you? Would reveal whether you were genuinely elite or just very good? Hunter had an instant answer to this question, just as quick as his answer about Giles. When asked who his strongest opponent was, he replied, Jimmy Greaves, without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt, that phrase carries weight. It means there was no debate in Hunter's mind. Greaves was the ultimate challenge, the opponent who rendered Hunter's entire skill set almost useless. And Hunter explained exactly why with one of football's most famous quotes. You could cancel him out for 89 minutes and 59 seconds. Then you'd get distracted for a second, and the ball was in the back of the net. That's genius described in a single sentence. Greaves didn't need to dominate a game. He didn't need to be involved in every attack. He just needed one moment, 1 second of defensive lapse, and it was over. Hunter, who built his reputation on intimidation, found that intimidation completely ineffective against Greaves. Hunter even admitted that Reevy's tactics acknowledged this. Reevy told his players to ignore Greaves outside the penalty area, believing he wasn't the bravest and didn't like tackles flying in. But here's the brutal truth Hunter confessed. Having said that, he scored against me almost every time we played, did Jimmy? Almost every time. Hunter knew Greaves disliked the physical side of football. He knew Greaves could be unsettled by hard challenges, and yet Greaves still scored. The lethal positioning, the predatory instinct, the pure finishing ability, these qualities overrode everything Hunter tried. That's why Hunter respected him so deeply. Greaves proved that genius beats brutality every single time. The 5th player on our list is Peter Osgood. This choice is particularly revealing because of how Hunter described their relationship. He called it a tremendous rivalry. Their battles in the 1970 FA Cup final were notorious. They were physical, confrontational, personal. Hunter shared a specific story from a league match where Leeds won 5-2. Osgood scored to put Chelsea up 2-1, went to the crowd, came back to Hunter and jeered, "Where were you for that goal, Norman?" Later, after Leeds equalised, Hunter looked for Osgood, ran over and growled, "Now we've got a game," and pulled his sideburns. These were square-ups, as Hunter called them, physical confrontations between two proud warriors who refused to back down. But here's what separates Osgood from other rivals. Hunter concluded the story by saying, "We had a few square-ups like that in those days, but we laugh about it now. We laugh about it now. That's reconciliation. That's mutual respect that survived the heat of competition and emerged stronger on the other side." Compare this to Hunter's relationship with Francis Lee. Hunter and Lee also had confrontations, including a famous punch-up, but decades later, Hunter still despised Lee. In his autobiography, he declined to let bygones be bygones. He called Lee and Rodney Marsh brilliant at diving, saying they'd run straight at you, knock the ball past you, and then go down. That's contempt. That's a lack of respect that time never healed. So what's the difference? Why does Hunter laugh with Osgood but maintain disdain for Lee? Answer is character. Hunter respected opponents who came back at you, who weren't afraid, played the game with integrity even when it got physical. Osgood was that kind of player. Hunter called him some player before his leg break, not bad afterward. That's high praise wrapped in understatement. Osgood was a warrior who earned respect through courage and skill. Lee, in Hunter's view, was something else entirely. Now, before we conclude, there's something else worth exploring. Hunter faced other legendary forwards during what he called a brilliant era for forward play. He grouped players into pairs, noting that most hunted in pairs: Denis Law and George Best. These Manchester United legends represented the ultimate rivalry, the matches that defined an entire era of English football. The rivalry with Denis Law was particularly intense. It was literally labelled Law versus Hunter, two men who seemed destined to clash every time Leeds met Manchester United. But it was George Best who perhaps best illustrates the respect Hunter had for pure genius. Best was so special, so dangerous, that he actually broke his own routine when facing Leeds. Best famously eschewed shin pads. He hated wearing them. But when Manchester United visited Elland Road, Best would break from his routine and wear them specifically because of Norman Hunter. Think about what that means. Best, one of the most naturally gifted players in football history, felt he needed extra protection against Hunter. That's a backhanded compliment to Hunter's prowess, yes, but it's also a sign of mutual respect. Best knew Hunter would come hard. Hunter knew Best could humiliate any defender in England. They respected each other's abilities, even as they prepared for battle. Hunter later acknowledged that Best and Law were the two best players going forward in the 1960s. That's significant recognition from a man who faced them repeatedly in some of football's most heated encounters. He could have dismissed them, could have focused only on the physical battles they had. Instead, he recognised their brilliance. He understood that his job against players like Best and Law wasn't to stop them completely. That was impossible. but to limit their impact as much as humanly possible. This broader context helps us understand Hunter's philosophy even better. He didn't just respect his teammates. He didn't just admire opponents who beat him. He recognized greatness wherever he found it, even in the shirts of fierce rivals. Leeds and Manchester United had one of football's most bitter rivalries during this era. The matches were brutal, physical, sometimes ugly. Yet, through all of that, Hunter maintained his ability to separate personal feelings from professional respect. He could battle Beston Law for 90 minutes and still acknowledge they were exceptional talents. Before I wrap this up, I want you to think about what we've learned here. Norman Hunter's nickname was Bites Your Legs. His reputation was as an enforcer, a hard man, one of football's most feared defenders. Yet, the 5 players he respected most tell a completely different story. Johnny Giles for his complete technical mastery, Jimmy Greaves for his unstoppable genius, Billy Bremner for his leadership and character, Jack Charlton for his mentorship and defensive intelligence, Peter Osgood for his warrior spirit and mutual respect. Not one of these players earned Hunter's respect through intimidation. Not one was chosen because they were harder or tougher than anyone else. Giles was a technical playmaker. Greaves was a finesse forward who didn't even like physical challenges. Bremner was 5'5". Charlton was a mentor, not a rival. Osgood was simply brave enough to come back at Hunter and skilled enough to make it count. This is the paradox of Norman Hunter. The man remembered for biting legs actually valued artistry, professionalism, and integrity above everything else. His job was to win the ball and give it to those who could play. His heroes were the ones who justified that sacrifice, the ones who took his hard work and transformed it into something beautiful. Let me leave you with this. These 5 players represent Hunter's personal Hall of Fame. Johnny Giles, the most complete. Jimmy Greaves, the strongest opponent. Billy Bremner, the heartbeat. Jack Charlton, the mentor. Peter Osgood, the warrior who became a friend. Each one earned their place not through toughness, but through qualities Hunter genuinely admired: technical skill, intelligence, character, professionalism, integrity. Norman Hunter is gone now, but his legacy lives on, not just in the tackles and the nickname, but in the deeper truth his choices reveal. Football isn't just about who hits hardest. It's about who plays with skill and honour. It's about who can take the ball and make magic happen. Hunter knew that better than anyone because his entire career was built around serving that magic. He was the master of knowing his role, and the players he called masters were the ones who made his role worthwhile. Which of these 5 would you most want to see play today? Would you choose Giles's complete game, Greaves's deadly finishing, Bremner's leadership, Charlton's defensive intelligence, or Osgood's warrior spirit? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this look at one of football's most misunderstood hard men, make sure to subscribe. We'll keep diving deep into the stories that reveal football's true soul, tales that show us these legendary players were far more complex and fascinating than their reputation suggests. Thanks for watching. Norman Hunter's professional career is defined by a profound duality between his public reputation as an uncompromising enforcer and the reality of a technically proficient, highly skilled footballer. Born in 1943, Hunter became a cornerstone of Don Revie's legendary Leeds United side, establishing a legacy that spanned 15 years and cementing him as one of the most influential defenders of the era. His defining public image was captured by the nickname Norman Bites Your Legs, popularised after a banner was displayed at the 1972 FA Cup final. This sobriquet immediately categorised Hunter as a pure enforcer, yet internal appraisals consistently reveal a different picture. Manager Don Revie often lamented that Hunter had never been given full credit for his enormous skill, noting that he was a great defender and ball winner, but also a great passer. This fundamental misunderstanding of Hunter's primary function forms the central conflict in assessing his historical value. He was not merely a destroyer, but rather a foundational ball winner whose subsequent distribution fueled the creative attack. His tactical mandate within Revie's system was clear: retrieve possession and initiate the transition. While the team was often characterised by its abrasive approach, Hunter's specific contribution was defined not just by aggression, but by the clean delivery of the ball to the team's creative nucleus. Hunter was pivotal to the decade-long dominance of Leeds United under Don Revie, serving as the defensive link between 1962 and 1976. During this period, he amassed 726 appearances for the club, a figure surpassed by only 3 other Leeds players. His presence was indispensable in establishing the club's success, which included 2 First Division championships in 1969 and 1974, the 1972 FA Cup, the 1968 League Cup, and 2 Intercities Fairs Cup titles in 1968 and 1971. He was the insurance policy that allowed the front 6 to operate with tactical freedom, winning the ball and feeding it to creative players like Johnny Giles, Billy Bremner, Eddie Gray, and Terry Cooper. The ultimate validation of his skill came directly from his peers. In 1974, just 2 years after the Bites Your Legs nickname reached national prominence, Hunter was voted the winner of the inaugural Professional Footballers Association Players Player of the Year award. The timing of this award, voted for by his contemporaries, serves as definitive evidence that professional peers held a fundamentally different and significantly higher evaluation of his technical and tactical skill set than the broader media or opposing fan narratives. This professional recognition stands as the strongest testament to dismantling the caricature that dominated his public identity. The reality was that Hunter was an excellent defender first, and his aggressive style was a professional requirement rather than merely a brutish tendency. Opponents had to be exceptionally good or quick to bypass him, while the Leeds team as a whole often earned the Dirty Leeds tag. Hunter was viewed by many as transparent in his approach. This transparency, however, meant his high-visibility aggressive actions were easily caricatured, positioning him as the system's most convenient scapegoat and overshadowing the technical finesse that enabled the team's transition play. Don Revie's philosophy at Leeds was defined by realpolitik, and he viewed Hunter as his ideal footballer. Revie's high regard was rooted in Hunter's unwavering professionalism and mental toughness. The manager noted that Hunter was the kind of player any club would pay a king's ransom for, reliably guaranteeing 55 great games every season. Beyond the battlefield intensity, Hunter's personal integrity was paramount to Revie, who described him as the most honest person he had ever met. This quality highlights a significant paradox. Hunter, the aggressive public figure, was internally known for his warmth and refusal to lie. His physical style on the pitch must therefore be understood as a tactical tool demanded by the system, rather than a reflection of an inherent character defect. His commitment to the team's collective success over individual recognition demonstrated a selflessness that was rare, even among elite professionals. The enduring legend of the enforcer obscures the fact that Hunter was fundamentally a highly capable footballer, described as being a better footballer in the classical sense, who could comfortably play in midfield as well as at the back. Revie revealed that Hunter was always prepared in his role at Leeds to win the ball, then give it to a colleague to build up moves. This implies a conscious decision by Hunter, sanctioned by the tactical framework, to suppress his natural inclination to carry the ball forward. He sacrificed personal flair for tactical necessity, focusing on rapid ball recovery and clean, quick distribution to the attacking players. Hunter's strategic importance lay in his dual capacity to destroy opposing attacks and immediately initiate his own team's offence. In the 1960s and 70s, many English centre-halves specialised in aerial dominance and physical clearances. Hunter, however, was celebrated for his ability to control the play on the ground. He possessed a lovely left foot and was widely recognised for his distribution skills. The quality and range of Hunter's passing were pivotal to Leeds' attacking efficacy. Revie famously quantified this accuracy, claiming Hunter's left foot was so precise he could open a can of beans with it. The most critical testimony comes from teammate Eddie Gray, who praised Hunter as one of the most skillful pass defenders he had ever seen. Gray offered precise evidence of Hunter's range, stating that Hunter could pick out one of the forwards even 40 yards away with his left foot. This documented 40-yard passing capability is not merely a statistical detail, but a profound indicator of Revie's strategic approach. by having a centre-back capable of instantly distributing the ball accurately from the defensive third directly to the attacking wide areas or to the advanced midfield, Leeds could entirely bypass the congested middle third of the pitch. This rapid transition neutralised opponent pressing and allowed the team to launch swift counter-attacks, making Hunter's accurate distribution the de facto engine of the team's forward movement. Hunter's capacity to distribute over distance, combined with his skill set, allowed him to function much like a modern ball-playing centre-back or even a proto-sweeper. When the opportunity arose, he was capable of deciding when to drive forward into space, commit players, and then find Gray or Giles with a telling pass. Reevy differentiated between Hunter's consistent performance and the 5 matches where he was just superb. It is highly probable that the superb performances occurred when Hunter was strategically given full rein to exercise his creative capabilities, driving forward and directly influencing the attack. This management approach ensured that consistency and defensive solidity remained the priority, while Hunter's latent ability to carry the ball and create chances was reserved for critical, high-pressure moments. Demonstrating his remarkable versatility and football intelligence, the true measure of Hunter's value is found in the testimonies of his key teammates, who recognised that his defensive tenacity and clean distribution were the indispensable requirements for their own brilliance. Hunter's long-standing partnership with Jack Charlton formed the absolute bedrock of the Leeds United defence for more than a decade. Their partnership was celebrated as the best partnership going, founded on complementary skills that made the unit impregnable. The dynamic was based on clear specialisation. Charlton dominated in the air while Hunter was the master of the ground game, handling the defensive covering and, most critically, the controlled distribution on the floor, allowing the team to retain possession and initiate play. The fundamental stability provided by Hunter and Charlton served as the essential insurance policy that liberated the attacking and highly technical midfielders, Johnny Giles and Billy Bremner, allowing them to express their ultra-brilliant football. Hunter was crucial in winning the ball, enabling these creative players to flourish. Johnny Giles, often referred to as the team's brains, provided perhaps the most compelling validation of Hunter's quality, calling him a fantastic player and one of the most complete players he had ever seen on a football pitch. This definition of completeness, coming from a tactical maestro like Giles, is extremely significant. Hunter's skill in handling the physical retrieval and secure deep distribution meant Giles was not constantly required to drop back into the backline to collect possession, liberating Giles to dictate play further forward. Billy Bremner, the iconic captain, relied equally on Hunter's defensive platform. Hunter's ball-winning capabilities allowed Bremner to push forward aggressively in his box-to-box role, confident in the defensive stability behind him. Without Hunter providing such a reliable foundation and immediate supply line, the attacking ambition of both Giles and Bremner would have been severely curtailed. Hunter's responsibility extended beyond the midfield to directly feed the attacking outlets. Eddie Gray confirmed that Hunter was tasked with supplying forwards and elaborated on Hunter's capacity to deliver long, accurate passes. Hunter's ability to distribute the ball over 40 yards directly to Gray was a crucial tactical advantage, bypassing centralised pressure and immediately isolating Gray against opposing fullbacks. Terry Cooper, a technically skilled fullback, also benefited significantly from Hunter's ball recovery and distribution. Cooper was part of the group of players Hunter would intentionally pass the ball to. Once he had retrieved it, this detail confirms that Hunter's distribution network was not limited to the central spine, but also extended wide to launch the advancing fullbacks like Cooper, providing speed and width to the attack. This distribution capability underscores that Hunter was a pivotal linkage player, connecting the defence to all points of the final attacking third. His understanding of when to release the ball quickly and when to hold it momentarily to draw opponents out of position showcased his exceptional reading of the game. Hunter's primary sporting achievements were concentrated during his 15-year tenure at Elland Road from 1962 to 1976. His 726 appearances constituted a staggering record of consistency and dedication. Alongside the domestic titles, Hunter secured significant European success, notably winning the Intercities Fairs Cup twice. The pinnacle of professional validation arrived in 1974 when he was recognised as the first ever winner of the PFA Players Player of the Year award. This achievement underscored the profound respect he commanded within the playing fraternity, establishing him not just as a defensive stalwart, but as a footballer of recognised excellence across the league. Despite his domestic eminence, Hunter's international career was significantly curtailed. He earned 28 England caps and scored 2 goals, however. His potential was constrained by the presence of 2 giants of English defending, Bobby Moore and his club partner Jack Charlton. Alf Ramsey's preference for the Moore-Charlton axis meant that Hunter, although world-class, was effectively the third best centre-back in a golden generation of English football. Hunter was a non-playing member of the 1966 World Cup winning squad and also participated in the 1968 European Championship and the 1970 World Cup. Had England's defensive options been less historically formidable, Hunter would likely have secured many more caps, potentially another 50. Solidifying his status on the global stage, Hunter departed Leeds in 1976, signing for Bristol City for £40,000, where he helped establish the club back in the First Division after a 65-year absence. He finished his playing career at Barnsley, joining in 1979 under former Leeds teammate Alan Clark. Hunter swiftly transitioned into management, taking over at Barnsley in 1980 after Clark departed for Leeds. Initially serving as a player manager, Hunter immediately achieved success, guiding Barnsley to promotion to the Second Division in his debut season. He later managed Rotherham United and served as a coach at West Bromwich Albion and back at Leeds under Billy Bremner, before ultimately moving into local radio work covering Leeds United games. The career of Norman Hunter demands a nuanced understanding that moves beyond the reductive caricature of bites your legs. The exhaustive analysis confirms that Hunter was not merely a physical presence, but a foundational defensive architect whose true strategic value lay in his role as a link player. He consciously bridged the gap between the defence and the attacking creation by combining relentless ball winning with immediate, accurate, forward-thinking distribution. His ability to execute a precise 40-yard pass was a fundamental tactical element of Revy's success, allowing the team to transition rapidly and bypass opponent pressure through the midfield. Hunter's death in 2020 served as a pivotal moment for the football community to correct the historical record. Tributes emphasised his gentlemanly nature off the pitch, contrasting sharply with the aggressive persona required on it. His legacy is one of fierce loyalty and foundational consistency. Leeds United chairman Andrea Radrizzani, reflecting on Hunter's competitive spirit, encapsulated his approach by noting that Hunter knew the first tackle would be a free bonus from the referee, so he could go and show how the game would be to an opposing player. This statement confirms that Hunter's aggression was a calculated, professional tactic designed to assert dominance and control the tempo of the game. From the outset, Norman Hunter remains one of the most significant figures in the history of Leeds United. He represented the necessary convergence of pragmatism and brilliance in the Revie era. While the creative players received the praise for their flamboyant skill, Hunter was the essential tacksman, relentlessly reclaiming possession and ensuring the integrity of the system. He was the honest, technically gifted, and intensely competitive foundation that enabled a great football team to establish a legacy that endures to this day. The PFA Players Player of the Year award in 1974 stands as irrefutable peer recognition of the complete package, technical skill combined with unparalleled competitive spirit that underpinned his decades of success. His influence extended far beyond mere statistics and trophies, shaping the very identity of Leeds United during their most successful period and establishing standards of professionalism and commitment that continue to inspire subsequent generations of players. His ability to balance ferocity with fairness made him a role model for defensive players who sought to combine physicality with technical excellence in their game.